Hi, I'm Ricky Fort and welcome to the Real Estate 101 podcast. Join me as I lift the lid on the real estate industry and share some great stories from behind the scenes. Like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, another episode of Real Estate 101 brought to you by Ricky Fort from Geelong Real Estate Co. That's me. Adam Archer from Bellington Estate. Welcome.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. Mate, you're a special, fun guest to interview because we started our own small businesses at a similar time. You're an ex-real estate agent.
Thought we weren't going to bring that up.
You're from an entrepreneurial circle doing fun things. So, mate, we'll crack on. So, welcome.
Appreciate you having me.
Let's do it. So, mate, tell us a little bit about, we always start basic, go way back. Tell us about where you grew up, your family, your circle of five.
Yep, sure. So, basically, Geelong born and bred. Mum and Dad came down when I was about 18 months from Melbourne. And then we moved to Lara.
Melbourneites. Whereabouts in Melbourne were they from? The fancy bit.
I can't remember.
Carry on.
They should have kept the house anyway. And we moved to Lara when I was...
sell.
Yeah, for about 5 and then was there till 19, 20 until I moved out. But they had the news agency there for 24 or 5 years.
In Lara?
Like yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So they had their small business and it wasn't a bad business, but it was an interesting business where it was very, very hands-on, kind of, provided well enough, but it didn't really get to that level where you could have support. So they were very hamstrung by that in terms of having to be there.
Guess that answers that first question about that entrepreneurial background and, his business, like running the family DNA and stuff.
Yeah, well, their parents had businesses as well.
Okay.
My grandpa actually had a roller skating rink.
Amazing.
Before my time, unfortunately, but I had a big Hessian bag full of different size roller skates in the garage. So I could just, as I grew, my foot would grow, I could just get a new pair of roller skates out.
We need to bring that back.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
Where do people find Bellington Estate?
So I'm in McClarty Place in Geelong. So in that little Mallet Street precinct there.
Hot Chicken Project District.
Yeah. So the lane opposite Hot Chicken Project, which is
delicious chicken.
A trap for me.
At least you can let out your own suits so you can make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
But roller skating up and down McClarty Place, yes or no?
I'm for it. Short shorts and whatnot. Might need a couple of beers first.
Speaking of that, I remember the council, I was sitting there having lunch one day. They hire some weird people. I'm not sure. They shouldn't anymore because the budget's been cut. But like you'd see people in weird outfits like skating up and down.
Yeah. There is some just random acts that kind of float through. There's a woman with an accordion and stuff like that. Surely.
We're paying for that, aren't we?
I think, have you seen your rates lately? Yeah.
We're paying for that.
Yeah, there's an entertainment section.
Tell us about your first job, I guess, out of school.
Well, I had no real, career direction. Like I wasn't like hamstrung on being.
Did that bother you at the time? Like, were you?
No, not at all.
So you know how some kids like freak out after school? It's got
no.
It was happy to fly by the seat of your pants.
That's me in a nutshell, really. But I was lucky enough to go to Geelong Grammar, so there was a lot of kids who were, focused on a certain career.
Yeah.
But I guess mum and dad were really supportive, and they were never pushing me into anything. It was more just you'll find your time, and I felt like
it's a big investment for a kid that doesn't know what he wants to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure they got their money's worth out of that, but. But I was a day student, and an only child, so they could kind of just make it work.
Yeah. Put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Financially savvy on their part.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
And maybe like they just got perfection right the first time, so they didn't. Yeah, I get it.
That's what I tell myself. Yeah. So I ended up jumping into hospitality, and working at the Barking Dog was basically my first job.
That's where you defined your craft of the gift of the gab, and
a big part of it, I think. I mean, mum and dad have got it anyway, but if you work in hospo,
both your parents can talk underwater.
Yeah, well, you would know.
Yeah.
Thanks for selling the house.
Yeah, recently sold their house.
Top of the range, thank you. Before auction. So, that job was really amazing for me. Really formative time, I guess. You kind of leave school and a lot of things are set in school, throughout that 6 years, but then you kind of leave and you go into a whole new world. So you can kind of, maybe be yourself a bit more authentically.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of kind of like-minded kids came to the same place, and the Barking Dog was amazing back in the day. So
who was running it or owned it back then?
It was joint owned. So it was Greg Dodds, who's the unofficial mayor of Geelong.
100%. We need to get him on the show, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably have to pay him. And another guy called Ian who was a bit more silent in the business, but it was a really good place to work, and I learned a lot. But it was really just kind of treading water until I found
What you
a
want to
career.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what comes next?
So there was a little dabble in university, computer science and software engineering, which was a very short-lived kind of career. It was about 18 months worth.
Sounds impressive.
Sounds good. I actually learned a lot of good stuff. Like
Yeah.
I still use in my current business, little bits of programming through Excel and, streamlining some of the software stuff that I do.
So it's not a complete waste.
Not a complete waste.
Do you remember what your VCE scorer was?
It was 69. I'll never forget it.
I like that. Mine was 32.
Really?
Apparently it's the lowest that they'll actually send out, and then after that it's more of like a discreet call. Hey.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, that's a...
Yeah. Look at us now.
I know, right? It means nothing. It's such a big deal at the time,
is,
and you give that advice to anyone who's going through it that, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or etc., sure, that's important. But if you're not sure, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. My biggest regret though, and it's interesting here, like you use some of that stuff in your business. I remember I was enrolled in accounting in VCE, and like I walked out of my accounting exam like 10 minutes in. I was like, pfft.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest regret ever because now I'm paying through the nose for like Geelong's best accountant, Ange Breeny at Sage & Co. But you just don't realise when you're young the stuff you're going to need later in life.
But it's funny when you start a small business or you're kind of involved in that, how quickly you can upskill yourself because you have to, right?
Yep.
So you would know more than, most people would get through in their accounting degree just because of where you're at. Your accountant does all the work, but, you know what they're talking about. Yeah. So, I understand that too. Like there's probably some regrets and I could have upskilled myself a bit more at university, but kind of fill the gaps pretty quick.
It's funny, like as you said, the different hats you got to wear, and we'll chat more about Ballington Estate, but you were actually one of the guys that gave me a lot of confidence. There was like you, Matt Baird, who owns like Alma and Felix and stuff, but I spoke to you a lot about like taking out a lease and doing a shop fit and like negotiating and stuff like that. I had no experience on that, and you've done all that, and like you said, you just got to figure it out on the fly.
I think so. I mean, I remember those conversations, and I'm glad they were worthwhile. But you really do just got to believe in what you're doing, believe in your abilities, and then if your business model is up to scratch, you're going to be okay.
We'll talk about that in a sec too, but about like taking the leap of faith, I guess, because I remember chatting to you and I thought I could do it, and I guess I really liked your story about how you did it. You had a secure job.
Yeah.
We'll try to stay on track. So the pub, then what?
So I left the pub, and as good as that time was, a lot of fun, learned a lot of really useful.
Met some ladies.
Ladies, but I was not fulfilled, and I knew there was not a career in hospitality.
Yeah,
most people who are in hospitality a long time are
unless you own it and like you're insanely passionate about it.
Yeah, that's right. It was never going to be long term. So I wanted to get out in a sense, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And quite a few people said, you should do real estate. You'd be great at real estate. And I don't know if that's a compliment or what, but I took their advice, and actually Dodsy ended up being a referee and helped me get a job at Access Real Estate in Highton. So I jumped straight into sales.
Yeah. Tell us about the team back then from Access. Like, is there anyone that worked there that's still around? Or
Yeah. So really unique real estate business, very different to what you'd see now. So it's owned by Amy Neo and her husband Brian. And
Brian was like my bookkeeper sort of thing. So
right.
Business coach. He's great bloke. A lot of real estate business owners in Geelong would know Brian.
Yeah, been around for a long time. Good numbers, man. So he was kind of the bookkeeping side of things, and she's sales. And credit to her, she was a Chinese woman in real estate 20 whatever years ago it was. Probably been doing 20s when I started with her.
Yeah.
And so very uncommon.
She was a formidable
and
she
a
was
gun.
An absolute weapon from right here.
She's really good. Listing machine.
Yeah.
She was a maniac, right? And she just ran a very strange ship, but it worked. Her model was good. She would.
What do you mean by strange?
Well, she just listed. It's just an amazing lister and seller. But so she had just a couple of sales agents, but we pretty much just sold her stock.
Fed off her.
So it wasn't like you were desperate to go out and get listings, because she was just
a machine.
Very generous with that, because she could be.
Yeah.
So you just basically sell her stuff. You pick up stuff along the way, but it wasn't, more like a real estate model now where everyone's, it's
sink or swim. You got to fight for your own stuff.
Exactly. Bring your own stuff in, or that's
and when I worked at the bigger franchises, it was actually the opposite. Like it was really like not were really frowned on to sell someone else's stuff, and because people were, the bigger brands are like really like, didn't want to share commissions and things.
So, and you can understand where people are coming from in a sense. But
it's really hard to get a listing.
That's
and all
right.
that stuff. I get that.
So it was a different business, but it wasn't, it was spicy jumping straight into sales. The retainer was, fuck all.
Yeah.
But it was, you could make some money still doing that. But the problem with that business model was it was all Amy.
Yep.
And then she had a massive stroke.
Yep.
Like, it was basically, the end of the road for Amy. She did die a few years later, but she never worked again, all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty horrible at the time.
So you were working there when that happened?
Yeah. So we got a call and, we never saw her in the office again. And that left me and Libby True, an absolute legend. And just before this happened, I was actually thinking about finishing up. I kind of wasn't passionate about the industry. And I think you really have to be passionate in it. Otherwise it's, it's a real slog. And then that happened. I was like, I can't leave these guys. I can't just leave Libby to somehow hold this ship together. Brian.
You're a good fella.
Yeah, well, I just couldn't see.
Didn't feel right.
No, that's right. So, and Libby was a really good chick, so I really enjoyed working with her. So we kind of stuck it out for a while.
Yep.
And I think I can't remember how long we lasted, but, everyone's like, Amy's not there, the business isn't there. It was, and I was really young, so we were cooked. So then they end up franchising to Ray White.
Yep.
Which was, the opposite, the antithesis of what they thought was okay. They hated.
What word was that?
Antithesis. Was that right?
I don't know.
Can we cut that out?
Yeah, sorry, keep going.
Am I going to get cancelled?
You go to Ray White.
So
Is that the one that's still in Highton now?
No, it's a different Ray White. Okay. So they actually, Hayes Winkle was what Ray White became.
Yep.
This business, right? It's a bit murky. Anyway, long story short, it all just kind of fell apart. They got in new people.
Yep.
And I ended up finishing up there probably another year later.
Yep.
Yep.
Tell us, I guess, real estate's only a really small part of your story, but it makes you a good podcast guest because I like the fact that you don't need to, although you kid out half of Geelong with great suits, Exhibit A, you've got relationships with all different real estate agents, but I think I like the fact that you can come at this podcast a little bit differently. You're not trying to there's no self-preservation of I don't want to talk crap about the industry or how hard it was or the people I worked with or whatever, because it doesn't really matter because you're out now, you're doing something completely different. But I guess I gave you a bit of a heads up some of the stuff we're going to talk about, so hopefully there's some good stories there of some highs or some lows. Maybe start with some highs. Do you remember, was there a part where you sold a couple in a week or helped a certain family, any positives? You probably focus on all the funny ones, but do you remember actual
I did reflect on this, and it was an interesting...
I'm glad that you did some...
Yeah. Oh, inward, very inward. And it was funny that I couldn't really think of these specific moments where, families that were just really thrilled, and there was lots of them. And that was the best part about the job for sure.
Yep.
There's nothing better than kind of negotiating a deal and then getting people more than what they expected or, really it's a huge part of their lives. So pretty special to be part of that. Do
you know what's interesting? And I think this is why you've gone on to do your own customer service business is the first thing that come out of your mouth is about helping other people. Hope that's genuine because that's pretty cringe.
No, that's right.
Honestly, that's lovely that,
Because I think, as opposed to just getting,
a big payday or...
Yeah, right. That kind of intrinsic stuff that is really worthwhile.
Yeah.
When people are really grateful for what you've done, it's really, really cool. Not a lot of roles are such high stakes for individuals, So that was good. I remember my first sale was really...
Having someone's wedding suit fit on the day is pretty important.
Yeah, that's right.
Photos forever.
Well, it's funny. It's, we'll jump back to the real estate stuff in a second, but you're right. The best part about my job is when people are just thrilled, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I had a guy nearly in tears on the weekend when he came in and tried his suit on with his little boy. He was really, really grateful that, because I'm a newish business. He was taking a leap of faith on me, just kind of on the gut feel, I guess. You know, and he was just so thankful that it looked amazing. So it's the same feeling, and it's they're very, very linked. My first sale was probably my most memorable sale. It was really strange. I'd left a party, sober, but I'd left a family function, and because it was, it was like a late night appointment, like 7 o'clock or something, in summer, so still sunlight, but it was just one of those things you just had to kind of make that time work. And it was Reigate Road in Hyden. Can't remember what number it was. Really good client of Amy's, really, one of those kind of semi-difficult ones, no opens, very private. She wanted to be there for all the inspections, all that kind of stuff. So it's just,
not easy.
No. So she's milling around while the buyers are wandering around.
I hate that.
The buyer, she had some health issues. She was mostly blind, and they was kind of
perfect for you to sell to.
yeah.
How's the view? Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, that's right. You could have said anything, but her partner was there. So, and they were lovely, and they haven't sold a house, right? They're super keen. And they're like, we want to put an offer in.
You're like, you what?
Yeah. So I've never, filled out contracts before.
What do I do now?
Yeah, that's right. So they're like, we want to put an offer in. My vendor's in the kitchen. So I go, all right, let's go out to the balcony and discuss this.
Because, that's horrible. I hate this already.
Yeah. So I can't remember what the price was. So they've offered, say, 20 grand less or whatever. Yep. All right, look, it's too low at the very start of this campaign.
Yeah.
Probably didn't use the word campaign back then. But I'll go and chat to her. And I'll be back.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
jump to the kitchen.
Essentially like an auction. Yeah, geez, what a way to...
First one. And then go in there and she's like, nah, want full price.
Yep.
Fair enough. Go back out there. Anyway, got full price.
Yep.
And they were just stuck. I was like, all right, let's get together. They came in the kitchen. Kid you not, we hadn't signed papers or anything like this. They're opening champagne.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm just like...
Murphy's Law, what can go wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, yuck.
So I was pretty uncomfortable about it.
Stayed together?
But what do you do? It did. But it got really weird because they'd been there. They ended up like swapping numbers.
Oh,
they were trying to like visit.
That's another thing.
Like before the sale.
Never they should speak to each other.
No. So it just got really, it got really weird, to be honest, down the track. But it was just a wild first sale.
One.
And then I remember just going back to the family function and be like, I sold the house. And everyone was like up and about. So
that's
it was really exciting.
That's a good memory.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I had when I was changing from one brand to the other, and I was like trying to do it on a really short time frame, and I had this client and they meant the world to me and they were really good people, and I didn't want to leave them in the lurch. And the company I was leaving, I wasn't convinced that someone would look after them the way I did or would like to have done. And so I a couple of days leading up to before I left, I had these two different buyers that were keen on it, and the vendor, similarly to that story, like lived, it was a court and she lived there, but the investment property was there.
Yeah. And
I had two buyers go there. And anyway, so I separated them on the day. I'm like, I need to get this thing into contract today because I'm going. So I was going backwards and forwards between three people in a court, like an auction, just walking between the three, and then end up getting it done, signing it up. But yeah, it's so weird when people can see one another. Like it works on auction day, obviously.
Yeah.
That sense of competition and bidding and that sort of stuff, but never a buyer and seller because it's horrible.
Yeah, it really...
You did well for your first...
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just lucky that they loved it and, were happy to pay. But yeah, it was pretty... it was a very strange moment, to be honest, but it was cool.
Tell me about... there was another story with a open for inspection day incident.
Oh, this is a not so good story.
Yeah. Let's go into that.
So this is probably towards the end of the career when I was thinking it's time to wrap this up. And my heart definitely wasn't in it. I was driving, it was a strange, I can't remember why, but it was a strange location for us. It must have been like out Leopold Way or something, this open house.
Yeah.
And it was pissing down on a Saturday morning. I would have been hungover. And I was driving, I remember I bought this car, this Vectra.
That's hot.
It's just a piece of shit, right? But at the time I thought it was cool because it had all the features of a BMW, and like I asked the mechanic friend, he's like, do not buy this car, it's just crap. Anyway, didn't take that advice on, so I've got a big loan to do this like classic real estate stuff, and the tyres were bald, so I'm driving out there, it's raining hard, and then I just hear this kind of like whack whack whack, and then I had to stop, like it was violently loud. I get out in the rain and there's this big strip of rubber that's hanging off the tyre. Oh God, I can't change it here or whatever. So, and then I couldn't actually get the rubber off.
It's
it was
pouring
so thick.
rain. You're in a suit.
Yeah, it's not good. It's a light grey suit too.
Yeah.
And I found
and on minimum wage back then, the suit wouldn't have been great.
No.
I've got a good visual.
Yeah, it's probably from I don't know, somewhere crap. And I ended
up
that
was classy, by the way. You didn't name names. That was classy.
No, I'm not gonna drag anyone down with me. And I found a bottle, like a glass bottle. So I ended up like smashing the glass bottle and sawing this bit of rubber off. thinking this is not cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, throw a bit of rubber in and the glass, go to the open, get there. I must have been just on time. And again, it's one of these ones where the vendors hang out at the house. Just horrible. I'm wet and the tire's now flat. And I can't remember I just explained what had happened. I was like, oh, what do? You just got to be kind of honest. And the vendor was like, I'll change your tyre for you, mate.
Yeah.
So I'm in there in his house. We didn't get a single
person through.
No one, donuts, whilst he's changing the tyre of my car. So
I love that.
So then your feedback's instant. Look, no one's through. We'll talk on
Reduce your price.
We'll talk on Monday.
So not only do you have to change my tyre for free.
Yeah.
Love that. It reminds me of another good story. There was a guy I used to work with who was doing an open for inspection, and it happened right here on the corner out the front of the shop, on the corner of, was it Paco and Autumn Street. A guy was putting out an open for inspection board, left the car running, which we all have done.
Yeah.
And an opportunist, was walking past, jumped in the car and took off.
Stole his car.
And he stole his car. It was the very first open for inspection for the day.
So his whole day's cooked.
Yeah, so the whole day's cooked. No mobile phone. The phone's in the car. He's like, if someone's
where do I go
say,
from here?
Yeah, like I don't even know where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Any of my vendors' phone numbers. Like their keys have also just been stolen for all these properties. So they had to call a locksmith, change all. Yeah, it was a nightmare. So
God.
what a good story.
That's tough.
Mate, it could have been
Who
worse.
was that? Can we talk off air?
We can definitely talk off air. But
Right.
because they're still in the industry, which is pretty funny. But I'll probably get them on the show. Yeah, they can tell it themselves. But it was very funny.
We've ruined this story for them.
Mate, tell us a bit about,
Sorry,
I guess, some of the... Happy for you to throw some shade on the industry, more so as in how it, what it demands from you, and that demanding client wanting to see you at 7 o'clock at night and that sort of stuff's a prime example. But I guess so people know what it's like to actually work in the industry and how much it takes from you and stuff. And also what I think most people I interview that don't like about the industry is how competitive it is and how it brings out the worst in people.
Yeah.
Having to say stuff about, oh, that agent's too busy, you'll get the assistant, or that agent's too new, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So
you would have hated that because that's not you.
Couldn't do it.
Like you said before, you wouldn't throw shade on someone selling a shit suit, but
yeah,
I can't imagine you enjoying.
Yeah. There's a big part about why I got out of the industry. The two factors were the commitment to the work.
Yep.
And not that I'm not committed to things. It's more just that, we spoke about mum and dad having a news agency and the time commitments that they had. Yep. The newspaper publishers, they were basically contracted. They whatever they said they went, and they had to deliver newspapers 365 days of the year.
Yep.
On Christmas morning, Dad's out there wrapping fucking newspapers. Yep. It's ridiculous. Who wants to read a newspaper that day? And I said I'd never put myself in a position to be hamstrung like that because they missed out on watching me play sport and lots of things that we would want to be there for our kids. They were working, so I didn't want to do that, and that's where I found myself.
And that's where it's going, and you're like, see the writing on the wall here.
That's right. And
pretty sure this truck is not got a handbrake on. It's just rolled back a few meters, and the guys carry on.
Should we turn the cameras around? And like you said before, you were leaving the business, but you were trying to get some deals done, and you really are committed to the
doing
vendor.
The right thing for people.
Exactly. And
pretty sure that truck just ran into something. Yeah.
Well, it's still going backwards, isn't it?
Oh, dear.
Oh, no, there's someone driving it.
Oh, jeez.
All
okay.
Right. So there was the time constraints, right? Because you are available 24/7.
Yep.
The phone rings at all hours of the day, all hours of the night. And what do? You want to sell the house, So you take the call and you call your vendors and all that kind of stuff. So there was that, but also the main reason was the some of the personalities in real estate I really didn't like being around, And that first office was great, but then when we franchised, it became a bit more of your typical real estate agency. And it wasn't just in our agency, it was other agencies kind of, and what they say about you. I'm a pretty sensitive soul, to be honest. And, it's not fair the way that people just slag you off to try and to get a listing, Don't list with him, he's young, or he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's got too many listings and he won't be managed properly, whatever it is.
It's the worst part of the game. It's not like with suits, someone comes in, they don't buy their stuff because they like, just talk about what you can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, just talk about what you can do, and the best man or woman should win.
That's what I used to do, right? I would never badmouth anyone.
Yeah.
And I knew late agents would be going in there lying, giving inflated prices, and then they would just bash the vendor over the head in a couple of weeks.
And it's sad because it's still happening, and everyone says, "Oh, it's a small town; they won't get away with that," and they've been getting away with it forever.
Same people, right? And then the unfortunate part for people like yourself and everything, you get tired with this real estate agent brush, and it's not fair.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. I'm trying to get people to see that we're just me and the people I interview, and that we're just normal people, and we're just trying to do business and do the right thing by people, and that's it.
I think that's getting better, to be honest. Like a lot of the, face to camera stuff that, you're doing with your listings and everything like that. I think it's harder. You're not actors. So, it's, you see genuine personalities coming through a bit more. So
that's the plan.
I think that will help. But yeah, I really didn't like the environment. I wasn't committed to the work, and you really have to be committed to the work.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the people I was surrounding myself with.
You put the two together, and that's
it.
It's a ticking time bomb. So tell us about the day you quit. Was that feel good?
So I was actually fired the first time. Yeah. So I was about to quit.
And he's like, well, actually.
Yeah.
Is it like, I didn't break up with you?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to get in first.
Yeah. So look, I was about to, I told my, the owners that I would booked a holiday to Thailand. I said, look, I'm running out of steam here. I need a break. Let me just go clear my head and make a decision. And before I left, they fired me. Yeah. So, and I was like, cool.
Perfect.
Yeah. He's like, I remember just having coffee, and I won't say who it was, but he was just like, you know what we're saying? And I said, yeah, mate. And he goes, I said, is that it? We good? He goes, yep. So I didn't finish the coffee, I just walked out.
Yeah.
And then I still had a key to the shop. So I just grabbed my stuff at like 9 o'clock that night and never saw him again.
Yeah.
Such a weird business. Anyway, it's a great holiday, and that was that.
And then tell us about the second time you quit.
So this was a really immature decision on my part, was to go back to real estate when I got back. So I got a call from David Graham, who's still in the game.
Yep.
He was an Access real estate guy from before I was there, but we struck up a friendship, and he was great fella, and he's really good at what he does. And he was working at Central 21 of all places back in the day. And he rang me up and said, I heard you left, like we'd love you to come across.
Yep.
And I really
can't afford me, mate.
Yeah. And I really hadn't figured out what I wanted to do, and I didn't have a job lined up. And it was probably a weak moment. Not that I didn't want to work with those guys, but I probably shouldn't have gone back into real estate. So I went back in, and I think it was only 6 months later, I was like, this is not for me. And I just told them, I said, and they would have known, I'm just not committed.
Like, I appreciate the opportunity, but I was out anyway. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So from there, I went back to uni and studied business, commerce, marketing, management. Sorry, majoring in marketing and management.
Yeah. Had you bought a house or anything at that point?
No.
Because obviously it's really hard to make, big financial decisions when you've got, a mortgage.
Yeah. No, I wasn't hamstrung like that. I was single at the time. So I really, it was quite an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was
I think being single in real estate is a huge advantage, because like if you've got a partner, and it's hard enough leaving your mum and dad's barbecue or whatever, like when you're supposed to be spending quality time with your partner, and you're constantly letting them down because an appraisal pops up, and someone's wanting to say, they need to see me tonight, they're about to sign with someone else, and you've got to I'm lucky that my wife gets it, and but because she's been with me since day one, and that's all she's ever known, but trying to do it with the family, it's
brutal for sure. And I was only speaking about this to a good friend during the week about people who are basically addicted to their work. And their lives outside of work invariably are rubbish. They can't sustain relationships well because you just don't have the time or the focus. So it's a real trap. And you're right, a lot of marriages fail to real estate. See it all the time. And it is because it's so demanding.
Mate, tell us about, obviously, so you've quit, you're out of real estate. I know there's probably a fair bit of time between that and Bellington being full-time, I guess, because, I'm keen for you to kind of tell that story, because I think it's important that you follow your dreams, and hopefully we can get on to a bit where you made the decision to take the leap of faith and leave the security, because I know where you were working, the money was huge, and it was very flexible, and it just suited you. But to give it away because there's the dream of something better. Tell us about that.
Well, there's probably probably 13 years there, so I can condense it a bit for you. So went through uni, that was great. And then so my ambition was to get into marketing. That was my degree, and I was going to go to Melbourne and do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and look, I really hate the desk work stuff.
Yep.
So it was never going to work. I don't know what I was thinking. Left uni, travelled for a good part of a year. Had just,
Where did you go?
Through Central and South America.
Were you single?
Yep.
Did some damage?
It was a good time. Yeah. And I was travelling with a friend, and we'd lived together. We both studied together as well. So we were at the same point.
Yep.
No, we quit our jobs and off we went. So
that's a good vibe.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And having that no commit was really unique. I mean, not many people get to do that. So, and did a little bit of time in Europe as well, and then came back with about $10 in my wallet and a bit of debt.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so
no regrets.
No regrets. Moved back in with mum and dad and thought, I just need to get back on my feet financially so I can
sort my life out.
Get to Melbourne and do all that stuff. And that was fine. So did that, and I knew a manager out at Shelvon Quarries. Yeah, right. So Shelvon Quarries. So it's the quarry thing gives it doesn't really paint the right picture, but it's more like a mine.
Yep.
It's out near Anarchy.
Yep.
And good wages, not great work conditions in terms of it's dirty and cold and wet and all that kind of stuff, but easy stuff to get into, and I knew I could probably get myself back on my feet. So I did that.
Yep.
And whilst I was out there, after about 6 months, Domain, who runs the shop, he said to me, look, our safety program is not up to scratch because it had grown quite quickly, like so many businesses do. And he said, do you want to have a crack at that? Do you want to, we'll get you some accreditation, upskill you and that side of things. And then because my background was more in, computers and processes and stuff like that, as opposed to the boys who are out there who are great operators but not necessarily as comfortable with that stuff, I was, a unique candidate for that. So probably wasn't ready to get into marketing. So sure. So I'll give you 2 years. And I was there for 10. And the reason I was there for 10 was because, one, I enjoyed it. Like you said, it was a really good, secure wage. It allowed me to buy my first home and all those kind of things. But also when I started Ballington, when that kind of came around, at some point when I was out there, I spoke to Domain and said, look, this is what I want to do. This is what's going to take me away from the quarry when the time is right. Are you comfortable with me, doing that?
This on the side?
Yeah. And he was really supportive, so that way I knew that, when the time came, I would be able to scale back and do 4 days a week or a couple of half days or whatever, and that's what transpired. And they were really amazing through that process. So I thought, as much as I don't love the environment, the perks of being out there and the guys I worked for. And
that's a massive compliment to the people and stuff out there. So the fact that, like you said, the working conditions weren't great, but you stuck it out for 10 years says that they're pretty good people. Yeah,
it's a long time, and enjoyed most of that. It tapered off a little bit with some of the crew out there, but that's life. As you get busier and you can't control the hiring side of things,
volume.
Used to be able to cherry pick pretty well out there. People, who wanted to work, and then COVID and all that kind of stuff, you get some weirdos flow through.
Tell us about so Suits, obviously how that come about, because there's no mention of that of your story so far. Obviously you're a snappy guy.
Thank you. I guess with all that in mind, you can kind of see with that, I was wearing suits in real estate. A good friend had said at that point, actually on that holiday I said when I was like thinking about retiring, quitting, and before I got fired, he said in Thailand there's a great tailor in Bangkok. He's in the foyer of the Novotel, so it's a really beautiful, legitimate setup, not like your cheap suit kind of guy. And he made a couple of suits for me, and they were incredible, really, really spot on, and they're only $150 something, back in the day. And I think that was really a light bulb moment in terms of how important it was to get a suit that fit you well, as opposed to just
buying something off the shelf.
How expensive it was. Because I was spending, maybe $800 for an off-the-rack suit, which was a fair bit of money back then. And they just looked very average because I was very slim, they were too big and all that kind of stuff. So I think that was, maybe where the seed was planted somewhere.
Was it a moment?
No, it wasn't like this is what I'm going to do. It was more like, there's an appreciation for the suits, right? So, I always liked them, but it kind of took it to the next level. So then I started kind of refining my interest in it and trying to understand them more and how different elements of them come together to make something look great, as opposed to just, that blue is the right blue. There's way more to it than that. So there was that. And
I guess that's where your background in uni stuff come into
exactly
its own
right,
too.
and the marketing and stuff like that. So And then I reflected on owning my own business. I never wanted to. Like, seeing mum and dad go through what they went through, I was like, I don't own my own business. I want the security of a wage, and I don't want to be hamstrung and not be able to do things that I want to do with time that is so precious, right?
Yep.
But then this kind of online business stuff started happening a lot more. Yep. And I don't know where I came up with the idea. I think I'd started making some suits for friends and family, getting some done remotely with this tailor, sending a suit back saying,
just built like a relationship with this guy.
Yeah, a very small relationship. And it kind of highlighted that I can do something remotely with
I can be a middleman.
Something in Southeast Asia, whereas the issue in Australia is it's just too expensive to get something made by hand. So that kind of got the light bulb going a bit harder, and then I started just building a business model and came up with Bellington Estate and started it as an online-based business. Yeah. So my idea then was that it would be purely online. So you would jump online, customize the suit, select a fabric, lapel styles, pocket styles, all that kind of stuff. And then you would measure yourself up using this video that I had made, it was pretty good. But, and then this ignorant notion that, you just kind of work from home and money would just kind of flow down the fibre optics and you'd be away. But for obvious reasons, suits, tailoring in general, it's such a tactile thing. Fabrics can feel different, look different, all those kind of reasons. It was, pretty slow, and that was fine because I still had my 9 to 5. So I wasn't worried about that. It was just a good time to refine. It was kind of like, I look at it as me doing my apprenticeship, because it wasn't something I had a background in. So it was a really good chance to just kind of learn slowly, get everything right, get the systems and processes right before, you open the doors to a shop. Yeah.
Was there a moment where I guess it started going well and you thought, maybe this is more than like a part-time thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was just a period of time, I guess, like a wedding season where it just started to build. And everything I was doing back then, I wasn't marketing the business. It was just word of mouth. And particularly for weddings, the guys are front and center. They're with the other bridal parties, they're the focus. So everyone's talking about what they're doing, and they've got professional photography done. And because it's such a service-based process that we went through, because so what was happening was it wasn't really selling through the online thing. It was more I started, going to meet people and then measuring them up, kind of like a traveling tailor. So then I was getting in front of people, and the service part of it came into it. So that's where the word of mouth started building, and that's when I was like, there is something in this.
What was the milestone when you're like, nah, this is it? What was the moment when you thought I've got to back myself? Is it like it's 10 weddings in a season? Is it? I'm not 20. Is it 10 jackets?
We're built differently. It wasn't a numbers thing for me. It was a gut feel. I just knew that the time was right, and where I was in life, it's Constitution, and where I was at with our finances and all that kind of stuff. We could kind of support this leap. Also, where the quarry was at, I could cut back to, I can't remember how many days it was, but there was going to be this kind of
flexibility.
There's this crossover period where I could have the shop and also work out there and, just let it build.
So I guess even from doing it full time to like getting a shop, what gave you the confidence? I know you said it was Marbo, it's the vibe, but it's a Constitution. But what is it that, because obviously you're married at this point.
We're not even married now, mate. Just call you Jets.
Ooh.
10 years in November.
Mate, you want to lock that down. She's a good woman. And I want to chat about her stuff too. But I guess what gives her the confidence that this is the right thing? If it's not money, what is it that, because obviously you signed a lease and it's an X amount of year lease. Like it's a big commitment.
Well, I think it was, don't get me wrong, I definitely did my research. I knew how many weddings were happening in Geelong, spoke to a lot of the bridal shops. And it's mind-blowing how many weddings they do a year. And knowing how much revenue I can make out of a wedding, it was pretty simple maths to go, well, we can definitely make
enough here to make enough
work. That's right. And then there's such little competition in the Geelong and regional area for custom suits, service-based kind of business. So it was just a real gap in the market that just was screaming for some attention. So I was like, let's just do it. And that's just how my brain works.
Now, I've had a couple of suits obviously made from you.
Yeah.
My favourite part of the process is obviously, aside from coming into your custom shop that you've done it looks very sexy, you've done some good things. You've got a mini putting green in there.
Yeah.
You can have beers around the fire. Lots of good things. But my favourite thing are the inseam jokes.
Yeah, there's some real dusty jokes that I would just roll out most weekends.
And they just roll off the tongue for you.
Yeah.
It's like, you can tell they're well rehearsed because they seem flawless.
It's like a comedian who just, you feel like, oh, that's, the first time they've said that, but they're just so sick of saying it.
Used it a billion times.
Yeah, no, there's a few that have actually retired since we caught up last
really?
time. Yeah.
It's, give me some of your better ones.
I don't think that any of them are good.
Just give me some. Let the listeners decide.
There'd be a few, like say, it's a good time because often if it's a wedding party, for example, I wouldn't do it if it's just a corporate client, but it's a wedding party, we're having a few beers, we're having some laughs. The short guy gets picked on, the big guy gets picked on, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll be a bit quieter and to say to someone, like, we're measuring up kind of, the inseam or the downstairs, I'd be like, that's all right, I won't tell anyone or something like that.
I'll bet you gave that one to me.
If it's a groom, I'm normally pump them up a bit. So I'm like, oh, it's a new record, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. All that just really, really kind of
I love it. And I think, man,
stuff.
lowbrow's me in a nutshell. But I think, man, that's why people love you and it's genuine, and people prefer to pay a bit more for a custom. Well, it's not really even that much more, but I don't want to do you out of pricing.
No, it's not. That was kind of how I priced it intentionally,
Yeah.
Suit's about, $8.95 for a custom suit.
Yeah.
When you're kind of spending like $700 for a country road jacket that's going to have to be altered and it's made out of whatever. Yeah. Sorry, country road.
Yeah. I forget where I was going with that. But no, I was just thinking, it's just you as a person and I forget, obviously my wife knew you from way back. But I think that's how one business just rolls onto the other and it's all just word of mouth and it's been yourself and it's been authentic and it's been fun. And I'm glad to see that that's worked so well for you, man. Tell us a little bit about, we're running out of time, you and I could talk for ages. 2 real estate agents together is a bad idea, but tell us, exactly. Tell us about, also I need some sweatshop jokes as well. Surely there's a few of those, like,
I used to, roll out things like, the kids and their fine hands and fine needlework and stuff like that, but it's a different time now, so I try and back off from that.
Keep it classy. I like that. Your partner, going back to that entrepreneurial, the 5 people you hang around, stuff like that, obviously it's very clear where you came from. That's in your DNA. Your partner, Jess.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been together?
10 years in November.
Lucky lady.
Yeah, very lucky.
Actually, I think it's probably you that's lucky, slightly.
I think we're both winners.
Speaking of winners, you've got a young son,
Max.
Maximilian.
Yeah, legend.
Great kid. He's definitely going to be a winner.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Jess, and I guess does she pick up that entrepreneurial thing from you? She's got her own business, amazing yoga studio in town. I know the girls going in to see her.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, has her own kind of entrepreneurial streak. Her dad owned a small business, was quite a decent business, a mechanic shop in Shepparton.
Yeah.
And it was quite a big setup, and he ran a really tight ship, and he sold it a year ago, and he, did really well. So she's grown up in that environment. And she definitely talks about the lows in that as well. It wasn't all a gravy train the whole time. There were times when it was, curried sausages and not much else. And,
curried sausages are delicious.
They are delicious, but not when you eat them every day. And we're not talking good sausages. This is back in the day where it's just,
I get it.
Horse meat. So, but she was around that environment. So I think when we started our businesses, there was no hesitancy in terms of jumping into business because it's just kind of what we've grown up around.
You're different because I'm so analytical and apprehensive, and the guys here probably don't see that. They think I'm impulsive and I just do stuff, but I'm a massive overanalyzer. I think about everything.
She's the same.
So I guess, this is good because obviously you were all about Marbo and the Constitution and just taking a leap of faith and not worried about the numbers, but for her again to take out a lease to do the yoga studio, it's another wordle. Where does that confidence come from? And again, you backing her on, saying if I can do it, you can do it.
So she
you can't have two reckless people in a relationship.
No, we're yin and yang for sure. She so she was burnt out in the corporate world, had a really,
What was her background?
she worked for a sports management company. So she managed elite athletes,
Yep.
And athletes you'd know. And just a brutal world, fast-paced, demanding.
Yep.
Sounds familiar, right? And she needed to change. So she quit and went and did a teacher training in Bali.
Yep.
And then came back with the intention of becoming a yoga teacher. That was the goal. There wasn't really I'm going to own a yoga studio. And she was teaching at a yoga studio. It closed, and there was this, group of
Loyal customers and
who were just kind of a bit lost and needed some. And then this really unique opportunity came up at the beach house, and it was just like we can't say no to this.
Yep.
You just do it. So it was really your hand was forced nearly.
Yep.
So that community kind of stayed together, jumped into that, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So COVID, I opened the Bellington State shop, which is when I look at kind of really the business starting. That was
Even though it was going well before that. But
it's just a different mode, right?
Yeah. Because you used to do measure ups at the
Bottles and Barrels.
Bottles and Barrels.
Yeah, exactly.
Good friend of ours, great business.
Yep. Yeah. So Kelsey supported me through that, which was awesome.
Yep.
And so that was November before COVID.
Yep.
And then Jess was like 6 weeks before COVID. Something ridiculous like that. So
you've got two leases.
Yep.
No kids at that point.
Well, fortunately, it wasn't a lease at that first one.
Yep.
So that helped. It was just like a handshake agreement for the space.
Yep.
And then no kids. And then so she just pivoted to an online type thing. I hate that word pivot, but it's what happened. To keep that community together, and because that community was so it was so fresh in their mind how that could be taken away when the other studio closed.
Yep.
They were actually quite good. A lot of people
more loyal, more supportive.
Yeah, and I think quite a few members paid the full whack, even though obviously we offered a reduced membership for the online stuff. So it kind of held it together. But at the same time, I was still at the quarry, so that was the
stability of some income.
Yeah, and because of primary industry, we basically didn't miss a day of work.
Yep.
But her studio is awesome. So it's called Good Folk Yoga.
Yep.
And it's now on my street, with a full lease, and that was when they really had to commit to signing and all that kind of stuff.
She got some good stories too around, like, you and I, we're the cleaner, we're the bookkeeper, we're the accountant, we're the marketer, I guess she would have been the same.
We're the chippies and the plumbers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And being the partner, you down there painting the place, and
and
I know Jess has a crack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should have seen it when we renovated. She was doing she was grinding the concrete to get polished concrete. Yeah, 100%. So Shep girl, she takes no shit and gets cracking. So massive credit to her. She worked her ass off to get the place up to scratch. So
probably a common theme that people like as this podcast, people listen to more episodes. That's usually it's not supposed to be an inspirational type podcast, but that's a common theme with pretty much everyone. We either work two jobs. There's no secret sauce. We worked two jobs. We worked nights. We did shit ourselves.
I think a lot of people that's it. It's either that or you fortunate enough to be supported by someone with a bunch of cash, right? And then they don't really.
I think there's
a different vibe.
The stories that people are going to love are more
100%.
Is this
totally? Yeah, it's always like a little flag, But yeah, you're right. It's just a slog.
Yeah.
And you make it work. And when your hand's forced, like, it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah.
Like, money's not coming in. You're like, I'm picking the phone up.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. You and I can talk crap for ages. We're running out of time. Tell us about how you manage relationships with so many different customers. Obviously, you've got you're friends with like the Barry Plant guys and with us, and it's difficult because real estate, as you know, is really about egos, and there's some average people in the industry, some amazing people in the industry. I guess, how do you come across as like not favourites and build relationships with everyone? Because I know like you're a classy dude, like you never talk bad about the competition and stuff.
No, that's right.
How do you build relationships with everyone?
Well, I really enjoy getting to know people. I'm fairly extroverted. And I get a lot out of those conversations. So a lot of what...
You've got a super dry, like, it's a fun humour. Your humour's not like many other people. Yeah, you're a weird dude.
It works, thank you. And I honestly, I was in the Geelong Business Excellence Awards. And they asked me about
finalist
this
in your first year? No big deal?
Yeah, no big deal. Back-to-back years, by the way. And
who's counting up?
Yeah, hopefully the judges get the cash this time and I can have a win. And... they asked me about that, and I was like, it's such a big part of it. Like every transaction, most clients would spend an hour in there, and most of that is just chit chat.
Yeah. Inseam jokes.
And inseam jokes. But I'm not thinking I've got to talk to this person for an hour to win their business or for them to be loyal. I'm genuinely interested in what they're on about and their story.
That's why it works, man. And you're a lot of fun.
And that's why with, the other boys, got some great clients at Barry Plant, Josh and Cam and
some good guys there for sure.
And Maddie. And and they know that I deal with you and that you sold mum and dad's house and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, I don't have 10 houses for them all to sell, but they're the same. They're good blokes, and they can see that I'm authentic.
I think people just want to support,
and they are too. So exactly right, and I'm local, and that's a big thing for them. Like, I know a lot of people would have to go out of town to get a product that like I have, and they're grateful that that's in town. So I think it's just being authentic. Bottom line, you're not trying to sell something. It's the same as you, right? When you walk into a home and people think,
it's just finding out
he's slick. No, he's not. He's slick. He's genuine.
100%. And not everyone values it. And again, that's probably a consistency that's turning up as we do more and more shows, that the majority of these people, man, are just authentic and doesn't vibe for everyone. Like I would do 7 to 10 appraisals a week, and a lot of the ones I miss are to those sleazy real estate agents that we spoke about before that go in there, promise the world, knowing full well it's going to reduce by 20%. And
you know what I think though? Like, I think it's a potentially a slower approach to business, because you are going to miss out on some stuff. But it's a deliberate move, because it's long term. These clients.
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And like how professional you guys were when you sold mum and dad's house. There's no doubt that I probably wouldn't even call anyone in. Outside of that, as much as other people do a good job, proof's in the pudding. And it's the same for me. Like, I could probably be out there being a bit more salesy or whatever, but I know that these guys are going to be clients for life, because they're, getting a lot out of it, not just a good suit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know, Lockie, that was like a big milestone. And I guess, mate, we're running out of time. But people love like that new first custom suit. This show's turned into a show about suits, but like Lockie, with his
that was awesome.
He got a bonus of achieved a milestone. I was like, you know what, I'm going to shout this dude a new bag of fruit.
Yeah, well done.
Sales pun, suit pun. And watching someone like unbox, that's my favourite thing, the way your stuff's presented. Like you open the box and
no, it's good. And I remember he was stoked with that. Like,
and he's a similar frame to you. He's tall. He's like got enormous legs.
Needs a bit of custom action.
And it's hard. I didn't realise there was so much in it. People think I'm just flogging the suits now, but there's a bit to it. Mate, last common theme that I ask people for all the time. Tell me something that, like, for a younger 20-year-old you or whatever, people want to follow their passion, not sure what if sales is for me, or they're in a job that they're not sure about, their heart's not in it. Advice, go. Go deep.
Oh, it's a tough question. I wasn't prepared for this one. I guess
it wasn't on the list.
I would say make a change. It's amazing what happens when you make change. How many times do you speak to someone and they've, miserable in whatever position they're in, they make a change, whether it's their work or a relationship or geographic location, whatever. And then in that tough period that comes, there's always some gold that comes out of it. You meet new people, you find a new role, whatever it is, your new boss, and away you go. So make some change. And if you're really young, if you're finishing school or whatever, or uni, travel. That was amazing for me. It just, you see the world, you get to see different appreciation, see how happy some people are, and with a lot less than what we have. And you really evaluate where you're at and stuff like that. So look, it's a privilege to be able to travel. Like, worked hard to get there. I know it's not for everyone, but if you can do it, get out there and don't go to Paris, go to somewhere that's, off the beaten track.
Last one. What would you potentially do differently? Was it like you just do it sooner? Look,
I'm definitely not one for regrets and looking back. What would I do differently? I mean, I would love to have done it sooner, but it just wasn't practical because...
That's another theme that comes up all the time.
But it wasn't practical because, as much as like that 10 years at the quarry, I wasn't satisfying my soul. But it was kind of just setting the foundations for what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
It got us our house, and we kind of we've got a nice home in Belmont. When I say nice, it's not the prettiest thing, but we love it. And, we got in at a good time. So that was a good thing. And it kind of just allowed us to build our businesses slowly and manageably. Like so many businesses you see, they whether it's because the business just cracks early or they've invested lots of money or whatever. Yeah. And they build quickly and then they get the speed wobbles and then it just goes to shit and then it's awful. Yeah. So sometimes I think that slower build is not a bad thing. So,
be patient.
Yeah, be patient.
Yeah. Love that. Arch, you're the man. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Mate, an honour. An absolute honour.
We could talk shit for hours, so let's wrap it up. But yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on the show. You're a star.
Mate. Cheers, buddy.